This is a video about crunch in the video game industry and in just business in general. I am going to try very hard to make this video without getting angry, without raising my voice, without getting obnoxiously passionate. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to give it a shot. If you think I'm wrong, that's fine, but hit me up in the comments and hit me up with facts. Hit me up with logic. Hit me up with links. Do not sit there and just spew horseshit like crunch in games, the result of bad management. I want you to prove that to me. Let me explain something to you first about that. I worked with the guys who used to work at Evans and Sutherland to make the Twisted Metal games. And they made Warhawk and Jetmoto. These guys used to work for the goddamn military industrial complex. They made flight simulators. If they got it wrong, people could die. That's how important their job was. These were not bad managers. And they crunched on Twisted Metal. They didn't crunch because they were bad managers. I'll explain why they crunched in just a second. But if you're going to comment, don't give me some horse shit. First time 8th graders have learned about workers' rights and now you're shouting from the rooftops like you think you know fucking something. Actually be logical. Don't hit me up with, oh, well, unionize, without understanding the decimation of the visual effects industry in America, because those guys and girls were unionized, but visual effects have become so much easier to do that movie companies can go overseas and get this shit done for a lot less than they can get done over here. And you people don't vote in politicians that reward companies for keeping work in America. And so, well, you're complicit too. So the idea that you're going to unionize, that's fine. But explain to me how you're going to create game companies that are able to be pressured into doing what the union workers demand when they can just kind of say, oh, well, yeah, you have no leverage because we can just go get your shit done overseas. We can get it done by hungrier people because it's getting easier and easier to do the below the line video game work. The above the line video game work, directors, the lead programmers, the online network lead, producers, they can negotiate their own fucking deal. So if you're going, oh, well, we're going to have them too, explain to me how you're going to get those above the line people right now that can negotiate back end, they can negotiate royalties, they can negotiate months off at a time after the project ships. Explain to me how they're going to join your merry band of Robin Hoods to basically set things right. And then we'll have a real conversation. In the meantime, listen and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not because I've been doing this for a long time. First, most great things come from obsession, hard work, and crunch. They just do. Apple, you look at how much they crunched when Steve Jobs was there. They hated it, but you know what? They changed the world. You look at Titanic, one of the most successful movies ever. It was a nightmare production, but you know what? It was one of the, at the time, it was the most profitable movie ever made. Progress, innovation, greatness takes getting to work earlier and going home later than the other guy. It's what innovation is built on. Now, I will absolutely not only concede, I will support and be very sympathetic towards the idea that most people doing the work didn't sign up for that. I mean, there's a point now that if you go work for Naughty Dog, if you go work for CD Projekt Red, you're a fucking moron if you think you're not going to have crunch. So I think in order to get one of those jobs, you have to be smart enough that you've done your research on the company you're working for and you know what you're getting into. So I don't really have sympathy for people at those big companies. I have sympathy for people who go work at a small company or a startup that no one knows the culture yet and they're promised they won't crunch and they do crunch. Then I would be like, yeah, that's bullshit. But yes, the above the line people and the business people, they get the glory. They get the money, they get the fame, and they build a lot of that on the backs of people who are exploited. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. There is no doubt. So it's like, it sounds like, Jaffe, you're saying that there's no solve. Well, there is a solve, but you're the solve. The customer's the solve, but you probably won't really do anything because, I mean, some of you will, but most of you just like sitting there tweeting out bullshit on your computers that were made with slave labor parts and were made at companies that crunch like a motherfucker in order to have a competitive edge. But yeah, most of you won't do anything. But here's what you could do if you really give a shit. You could vote in different politicians because this is all about unregulated capitalism. This is all about a lack of social safety nets in the West, or certainly in America. You lose a job, you lose your health care. So to stand up to the man is really fucking hard if you've got 2 kids at home and a wife and she's got the flu or some such shit and you're like, well, yeah, you could walk out and make a stink, and then what are you going to do? Also, look, man, I had a conversation with the lead programmer, the main creator of a game called Pumpkin Jack, which is mostly made by one guy. Great game this year, one of my favorite games. He used to work for a big company. I want to say it was Ubisoft. The guy quit. I don't know why he quit, but he quit. In France, if you're out of work for a year, they'll pay your fucking salary. He literally said he built the first part of the game in that first year on his own because he was basically getting his salary from his old company, because that's what they do in France. And he's sitting there working and being productive, and then he went out and got a publisher and made it his full-time job after a year off where he was subsidized by the fucking government. Oh, we can't do that. We can't. Well, you know, that's kind of the thing. Stop voting in the motherfuckers who basically want to keep the fat cats fat and the 1% richer and keep you down, and actually make some fucking changes and vote and get engaged with the process, because that's what it's going to take. That or fucking physical revolution. Another thing you can do, stop shitting on indie games, and stop telling me that games like Hades and games like Don't Starve were made without crunch. Those are great games, by the way. Hades, one of my favorite games of the year. Those games made with like roughly 20 fucking people. They're not public companies. They don't have the need to blow people's minds with production value. But if you really feel like crunch is bad, stop buying the big games, or at the very least, stop shitting on indie games in general by going, oh, those are shitty fucking little games. Those aren't real fucking games. I want a real fucking game. That's fine. But the real fucking games, because you guys demand the production value, you guys demand bloated features, so suddenly, oh, my game's 100 hours instead of 70 hours, instead of 60 hours. It's shit if it's not. You guys demand a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more every single fucking time, and then you're curious, why is there crunch? It's bad management. No, to compete at that level, you guys have made the goddamn demands as gamers and as customers, and what do you expect these people to do? Let's be clear. This idea that Hades could do it, so why can't Last of Us 2 do it? Don't Starve could do it. Why can't Cyberpunk do it? You don't know what you're talking about. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but if you've never made a game, if you've never worked in the industry, and you've certainly never worked in the industry or made a game at a level of these big games, but you people online, a lot of you motherfuckers are just like, oh, it's bad management. No, it's the same thing. Hades is the same thing as Uncharted 4. No, it's not. Hades is 20 fucking people, give or take. Uncharted is part of a huge multi-billion-dollar corporation that has financial responsibilities that they have to hit for their investors. These AAA games are 200, 150 to sometimes 500 people, and they're not all sitting in the same room managed by the same person. It's all over the world, and some of those people are outsourced. They don't even work for the core company, and they have their own policies, and they have their own management styles in all these different outsource companies because you guys demand games to be this big. So the idea that it's the same thing as you and your lifelong pals and the new people you've hired, and there's like 20 of you, and you can all be accounted for, and your families at the Christmas party, and you know each other, and you go to your birthday parties with their kids. It's the same thing, and it's just bad management. You either know you're full of shit and you're just preaching just to sound like you know what you're talking about, or you're fucking moron. Because it's not the same thing. When it scales up like that, it is a whole different kettle of fish. And you show me one great AAA game that has been created without at least a meaningful amount of crunch. Not everybody has to crunch like Naughty Dog, but you show me one AAA game that's been created that way, and I'll be more than happy to publicly apologize and say, hey, you were right about that. That's good news. But I don't think you can find it because I've never heard about it, and I've been in video games for 20 plus fucking years. Finally, stop going to websites that both rail against crunch and make their money off games that were made with crunch. And I'm sorry, it's not a valid excuse. It is not a valid excuse for these reporters, because I've heard it. Oh, well, you know, we can do both. Well, you can, but you're a hypocrite. Pick a fucking lane. If you really are as righteous as you say, and you really believe that this is a problem, then you know what you're going to do, Kotaku, Polygon, whoever it is that we're talking about, Jason Schreier, whatever his name is. You know, here's what you do. You pick a lane, and you either don't cover the big games, or you cover the big games and you stop complaining about crunch. But you don't stand on a mountaintop and shit on the process and then make money off the same process you're shitting on, because it makes you kind of not much of an authority on the issue. More importantly, you also, as a consumer, what you can do, you stop going to websites that cover games where the editor-in-chiefs have not said to their employees, you have to go home at 5:30, you have to come in no earlier than 9:30, you can't work on the weekend, and you have to take at least 10 days off a year on vacation. And if that vacation falls during E3 or it falls during a product launch, it doesn't matter, because your personal mental health is more important than our bottom line. You go to those websites, and you go to websites where the content is written without people staying up till 3 a.m, fact checking it, editing it, proofreading it, hunting down sources and all that. Then I think you have a pot to piss in. But until then, the best thing you can do is admit that we're all complicit in this. It's all fundamentally about capitalism. Capitalism is all built on the back or built on the foundation of greed, which is built on the foundation of fear. We don't take care of our people. We don't take care of our citizens. We don't have social safety nets. And so everybody across the spectrum, no matter what level you work at, no matter what job you work at, is just trying to fucking survive, or just trying to hoard and keep what they've got, because we've been conditioned that there's a scarcity mentality in this culture. And if we don't fucking act like fucking savage motherfuckers, we're going to end up alone and penniless. That's the big nightmare in a capitalist society. So if you really care, then get to the fucking root of it and start digging around in there and start fixing shit. But don't fucking virtue signal on the goddamn Twitter and act like you know what you're talking about. And certainly don't come after people who've been doing this professionally at various levels, hits and misses, for decades, and act like you know more than they do, because they know a lot and they've been around the block, and you're just a fucking keyboard warrior, and you need to grow the fuck up and wise the fuck up and shut the fuck up.